All right, welcome back, Chicago. My name is Christian Cardinas. I am your RFP Systems Manager for RPAG. And I have my friend Lizzie here. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lizzie Moye. The first test here was seeing if I could get in this chair, which I did do. But when I get off this chair, I want everyone to turn around a little bit. I am the large market sales director for TransAmerica. I'm based here in Chicago, and I cover the Midwest, and happy to be here.
So did anyone have on their bingo card that we would be in a basketball court today? Anyone? So, well, I'm really excited to get going with advanced plan pricing. I know that RFP benchmarking with your clients or prospects is a big project, a huge part of the process of being an advisor. And today we're going to be going to talk about top 5 obstacles to avoid and a few tips and tricks on what to consider at your next fee benchmarking meeting. And I'm excited to get us going. Let's see. In a second. Perfect. Structuring your meeting. Having a game plan. This is going to be the most important step in the benchmarking process. Having a good foundation for you. Knowing the type of report you're going to be doing for your committee. You really want to be able to do your homework when it comes to exactly who you're meeting. You want to be able to understand who the client is going to be. Are they going to be really detail-oriented? Are they going to be very high-level understanding on the benchmarking process in general? Or are you going to have to go a little bit deeper dive into it? So if you've ever ran a benchmarking report in our system, you'll remember that we've got 2 different versions. We have a B2 report, so you're essentially saying, we don't need to look at the lineup just yet, but we might have to consider that later down the road. Or you can include the lineup and have a B3 report. So again, knowing what your game plan is going to be for your client or prospect is going to determine whether you're going to need a B2 report or a B3 report. Another thing to consider is our services questionnaire. So you may have seen our service questionnaire as a long form version or a short version of the service questionnaire. Something to consider as well. One has 9 sections. The other one has about 21 sections, 500 data points. Again, if you know your committee, if you've got a good grasp of who you're meeting with, you'll understand which kind of questionnaire you're going to be working with in general. And finally, kind of what pages are you going to be focusing on? Are you going to be focusing on the total cost summary? Are you going to be looking at the net record keeping in an admin page? Or are you going to go into the finer details of the admin fee details page? So again, these are things that you really want to consider when you're coming up with your game plan. Structure your meeting. Do your homework on who you are meeting with. And that's going to set you up for a really great meeting. So enough about kind of the beginning parts of your benchmarking process, but let's talk about the incumbent structure and the type of questions you're going to be going into. I've kind of had enough talking for a little bit, but I want to ask Lizzie a question on really what TransAmerica considers when it comes to unique plan features when it comes to the incumbent.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really important because every plan happens to be very unique, especially the very highly complex large market plans that I'm often looking at. Just to take you a little bit sort of behind the scenes, when we receive a pricing request or an RFP comes into us, that really sets in motion a process internally. So what happens is our RFP team, our pricing team, as well as the sales team come together, they scour all of the information that's been provided, and they're then going to come up with an overview of that plan as well as questions that we are going to have for the advisor. And there are things that are need to haves. Anything that's very unique about the plan is important for us to know, but the basics of the need to haves, as an example, is total plan assets, right? We just can't price a plan without knowing that. But a nice to have piece of information might be payroll feeds, number of payroll feeds. But as we were getting ready for today, I actually went back and looked at questions that came in from our team for a recent 401k RFP. And of course, the plan type leads to the questions that are asked in many cases. But in this particular case, we had a list of probably 10 or so questions, and included was total plan assets, total contributions and distributions for the past year, number of eligibles, did this organization have any M&A activity planned, upcoming, or recently completed? Did education need to be factored in? The list really goes on and on, but the long and the short of it is that the more information we can get, the better. So I have seen cases where we've reviewed an opportunity and have had more than 50 questions. I've also seen cases where we have, 5 or fewer questions because of the level of detail that the advisor was willing to get into. I also want to note, I totally understand that it's hard sometimes to get the level of detail that we might, as the record keeper, like to have. So we can make assumptions based on market data, but I think it's always really nice when we and the advisor can partner together and figure out how to get to the most accurate price, because that's, sort of the shared goal, right?
Yeah. Well, I had a situation come across my desk, MBA. So I had an advisor call in, and he's telling me, hey, Christian, I ran a benchmarking report, I had a finalist meeting, looked at the incumbent, and they were getting ready to move cash funds into another stable value. Lo and behold, they find out there are some cash restrictions on the move. And this is just a great reminder. Do your homework on the incumbent structure. Understand the different unique plan features that are going on. Make sure you do your research on whether you're going to be moving funds and money in that sense. That way, when you come across the cash restrictions, you weren't caught off guard. And situations like that do happen, mistakes do happen, but I think our job up here is to make sure that you all are aware of the different type of factors you're going to want to consider. Is there any flexibility with TransAmerica and MBAs?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that has been like the hottest of topics. I came into this territory about 1.5 years ago, and I feel like every conversation I've had since I came into the territory has included a discussion on MBAs. There are a couple different ways we can handle it, and we are going to be flexible. So I would say we're going to look at it and probably be pretty willing to handle it via a buyback. Now, there are also situations where the current fixed option is traded on the NSCC or is available for us to record keep, so we can also do that for the duration of the put to avoid the MVA, but we can be flexible with how to determine it or with how to handle it based on what we're looking at.
Thanks for the input in there. Another thing to consider, how are fees going to be paid? This is really important to understand, to take a look at, and be ready to explain exactly how that's going to happen. Are these per participant fees, or are these basis point asset-based fees? And everything's circumstantial. So if you're looking at your client or prospect and you foresee maybe more participants coming into the plan, that might ring a bell on how you might want to change the fee structure on the plan. Or are you considering probably more assets are going to be coming in this year? So definitely keep these factors in mind when it comes to looking at the incumbent structure, asking the right questions, making sure that before you get to that finalist meeting and you have a surprise on your desk, that you've really done your homework on the plan. So we're going to shift gears and kind of go into SDBAs and managed accounts. So I know that these can be a little bit tricky in the report. So if you ever ran a benchmarking report, you can include SDBAs and managed accounts as a fun item. And one thing you're going to want to ask yourself is, are these assets in the SDBAs, are they being charged by the record keeper fee or not? If they are being charged, you're typically going to want to include those assets in the fund lineup. If they're not being charged, but you did get confirmation that they're not being charged, probably exclude that from the fund lineup. Otherwise, you're going to be experiencing a double charge on that. So definitely keep that in mind. Are record keeping fees assessed against these funds? TransAmerica. So what's your take on SDBAs? How do you treat them? Is there anything that our membership should know about?
So I think for me, the short answer is that we're going to be very flexible according to the current structure. So, using the example managed accounts, if the current structure is set up where the asset charge excludes managed advice, we can mirror that. But I think just to take it up a level, maybe one level higher, essentially what we're going to do is show pricing how you want to show it. So if you want to show an asset-based fee, if you want to show per participant, if you want to show a hybrid, we're going to ask those questions. Do you want education days included? Do you want education days included, but you want them included a la carte? Do you want it built into the overall record-keeping fee? We're going to ask you about transaction fees to see what they are today and make sure that we can mirror them. So when we come to the table, we're going to lead with open architecture and making sure that it mirrors the current lineup, but we're also going to, with the advisor's permission, show other scenarios, like what does the cost look like with managed advice included? What about including, TransAmerica's stable value solution? So when we actually come to deliver pricing, you're probably looking at upwards of 3 scenarios.
Awesome. And just so you all know, you're more than welcome at your next benchmarking report to reach out to RPAG, ask for the RFP team, myself and my colleagues. We'll be happy to look into exactly what you're dealing with in your plan, ask the right questions for you. That way you've got all your marbles in order for your next benchmarking meeting. So SBAs can be tricky. Sometimes you might end up showing the incumbent as being overcharged. And again, it doesn't hurt to have another set of eyes on this type of structure. So just kind of honing in on that proposal accuracy check, I felt like we really needed this as its own slide. I can't encourage you guys enough to make sure you're checking the accuracy on the incumbent, on the bidders, making sure that the numbers that are on their proposals match what is inside the report in itself. If you've got questions on that, please reach out to us. You can ask for Christian, and I'll be more than happy to kind of take a look at that with you, because at the end of the day, RPAG wants you all to succeed. And not succeed in just benchmarking, but succeed in winning that new prospect through our benchmarking systems. And we're just really excited that you guys decided to be able to use our benchmarking report. And in turn, we're more than happy to help you out in checking the accuracy of those proposals. So let's dive into kind of the ending portion of a benchmarking meeting, the fee concessions, and what some of these considerations are going to be. Keeping the bidders' names blind. You really want to have a level playing field, playing a neutral role as a advisor in the type of provider you're going to be selecting for your finalist meeting, or essentially just finalizing who is going to be the end product. Keeping the bidder names blind is really going to allow the incumbent to take a look at what the numbers came back with and allow them to really give you a true fee on what they can do regarding concession pricing. Ensuring fair comparison in fees. Do your homework. Make sure each of these proposals you're getting reflects what the incumbent is also offering. You really don't want to be able to accidentally give someone the upper hand or give someone the lower hand on what their pricing is reflecting, because that could really mean a difference between 5 basis points, 15 basis points. And you really want to know what those numbers are going to be truly behind the scenes. So you also want to consider your incumbent's internal review process and timeline. I know that Lizzie kind of touched on that a little bit, but are there any other fee concession considerations that TransAmerica takes?
Yeah, I like to drill into this one in particular, because in a situation where TransAmerica is the incumbent, I, as the wholesaler, really do like to be involved. And I think different salespeople probably have different philosophies on how exactly this should work, but my personal opinion is that when we can partner together, with the advisor, the relationship manager, and the wholesaler, it allows the process for, where we're kind of in a retention situation, to maybe flow a little bit more smoothly. So, of course, the relationship manager who's working on this plan day to day should be proactive about making sure that the price is competitive, but we understand that benchmarking is the way that our world works. And selfishly, being a wholesaler, I appreciate the fact that there's benchmarking because I like to see volume of opportunities in my pipeline. But when we are the incumbent, I really like to partner with a relationship manager and look at the ways that we can help partner with the advisor and make sure that that offering is competitive. And I think it's important for salespeople to be involved in that process because every day that we're showing up to work, we are involved in pricing exercises. We are looking at what the market has to offer. We have a very firm understanding of the market and the landscape that we're working with. The other piece is that we have a way of navigating that system and that process a little, really smoothly internally. So when the relationship manager and I can come together to navigate that process, I think it gives us a leg up selfishly. The other piece I would say, and I mentioned that I've been here in Chicago for the last 18 months, I view it as an opportunity for the advisor to get me to show up and really work for them, because I do think it's important that the advisors we have relationships with understand that we want to work a little. You should see me sweat a little probably before you send me another opportunity. So I always like that as a way to sort of refresh the advisor's understanding on TransAmerica and give them an opportunity to see me work a little before the next opportunity comes in.
Thank you. And really the last thing to consider is including a proactive concession in your analysis. I know that we have advisors out there that sometimes don't include the concession pricing directly side by side in the report. They kind of keep it to the side and say, hey, I did my work on it, check it out. It's like on a separate piece of paper. But just so you can see, this is one of our pages in the provider analysis. It's our net record keeping and admin cost page. You can see that we don't have concession on here. You just get the incumbent there alongside the bidders, versus you have the concession in there. It's right next to the incumbent. You can see it on the bright green column there alongside the other bidders. So again, little details like this will make a difference in your benchmarking report. And this is just one page. Concession is reflected across the entire report. And having that pricing side by side adds a huge value to you as an advisor going into a meeting, not just for a client, but for perhaps a prospect, someone that you're looking to win business over, and show them that you're going above and beyond what is expected of you as an advisor and being able to win that business. And that's something that RPAG really prides ourselves in, is having our membership win the next plan, win the next prospect. So if you have questions on how that is going to look like in your next report or how to apply that in the system, I'm more than happy to help you out in that. So some final thoughts. Let's be proactive. You don't want your client to go, hey, I think we're behind on our next benchmarking meeting. When are we going to have that? You want to be the first one to bring that up to the table. If you're not familiar, we have our service plan calendar. So if you are using that feature in our system, you already understand that as a practice management software, we are helping you all with your next meetings, whether it's benchmarking, investment review. So definitely keep that in mind. Another thing to consider is generating an annual plan fees averages benchmark report. So if you're familiar with plan fees, you already know how easy and quick it is to generate one of these reports. I highly recommend you do that as an added value for the next prospect meeting. I know that this isn't up here as well, but RFP Express can be used in that same fashion. It's really quick, really easy to use. At the next benchmarking meeting, it takes no more than 15 minutes to give your client or prospect a ballpark number on where the competition's at. Next, performing a full RFP or benchmarking report every 3 to 5 years. I know we all know this. I just felt like I had to put that on a slide and make sure we all remember every 3 to 5 years. If you haven't updated your service plan, please go ahead and do so later on today or when you get back to the office, because that will take you in the long run. And finally, document everything thoroughly. If you haven't used the meeting minutes report in the past, it is an intuitive tool where essentially it reads your provider analysis report, adds notes, and kind of writes everything out in a very legit fashion where you simply just have to click a few buttons and you have your meeting minutes from that benchmarking report there. So if you don't know how to do that, I'm more than happy to show you that later down the road and kind of show you how neat that feature is. But Lizzie, any final thoughts from you on advanced plan pricing?
Yeah, I would say a couple of things. First, I appreciate the RFP process, and I like to get really involved in the RFP process, especially for advisors who I haven't worked with or I'm just meeting, to make sure that they have a really firm understanding of TransAmerica's current capabilities, the technology, the services that we can offer to participants, the services that we can offer to plan sponsors to make their lives easier. The other piece I would say is feedback is really important to us. So, of course, completely understand that many times these are benchmarking or pricing exercises, but when we respond to an opportunity, it's really good for us to understand where we fit in with the other bidders, and of course you can deliver that, in a blind fashion as well. But when there's an opportunity to get on the phone after we've submitted a response, and there's an opportunity for you to tell me, here's where we landed on pricing, or here's you were up here, you were down there, you were right in the middle, all the bids were very competitive. I think that feedback really does help us, be better, make improvements, sort of sharpen the pencil where we need to. So we really view this as a partnership, and look forward to working with any of you who I haven't yet.
I really appreciate what you said about RFP process. I don't think a lot of people can say they really like the RFP process, and I feel like I'm there with you. That's our world, and there's definitely a niche for it. And our goal at RPAG is to get you all on that same level. So just a round of applause for Lizzie here. I really appreciate her time. Thank you.